Hi everybody. I didn't get time in class to talk about standard deviation and how to calculate that, so I wanted to record this quick video so I could post to help you out. There are lots of different ways that you can record standard deviation or calculate standard deviation. One is by hand, and if you're in a stats class, you'll do that. If you're in our class, you generally want to avoid that. Your calculators, your regular scientific calculators that you can use in lab and on exams, all have the capability, and I'll show you some of that in class. Today I want to show you what I think is an easier way if you're at home and near a computer. So I'm going to go ahead and use Office 365 for this, since we now all have access to this through the school. So I've just logged into the dashboard here, the My Portal dashboard. If you go to the website and click on it, so this is how we access our email. Mine is staff email, of course. Yours is a little different. So I've logged in, and you scroll down here to the Microsoft Office 365. So if you just click the Microsoft Excel, it'll open it up. And then this is really cool, how easy this is to do. So just go to New Blank Worksheet, and it'll open up an instance of Excel that you can go ahead and type in. So here's the spreadsheet. And the first thing you just need to do is enter your data points. So this will just type data in this cell. And you can start anywhere you want here. We're just going to type in some data. Let's just type in 1.1, 1.2, and 1.4, and those would be our data points. So if you're listing these on your lab, we would list these as X1, X2, and X3. Just in other words, data point number 1 is 1.1, data point number 2 is 1.2, and data point number 3 is 1.4. So that's our data. Now we want to calculate the average, the standard deviation. An abbreviation we often use for standard deviation is STDEV. You'll see why we use that often. And ultimately, the percent relative standard deviation. So I'm just going to put those labels here, and I'm going to show you how to calculate them. It's really straightforward. You just put your cursor in the area that you want to calculate it, and you type literally equals, which tells Excel that we're going to type in a formula. We're going to tell it to do a calculation. And then we type the word average. And you can see that Excel knows that this is a calculation that it's going to do. And then we open the parentheses, and we highlight the things that we want to calculate the average of. And then we close the parentheses and push enter. And it will now, in this cell, calculate the average of the cells that we highlighted. Now we can do the same thing for standard deviation. In Excel, the function for standard deviation is STDEV. It's that abbreviation. Now there are some variations on this that you can learn about if you want later. We just need to type in the standard STDEV, and Excel knows what to do. So open equals STDEV, open parentheses, and highlight the cells that we're interested in. Close parentheses, hit enter. And that should calculate the standard deviation in the cell. So for our data set here, it has an average of 1.23333 and a standard deviation of 0.1527. Now the relative standard deviation is just the standard deviation divided by the average in percent form. So to do that, we again just type in equals to tell it we want it to calculate something. And then we click on the cell, standard deviation. Then we use the divided by sign, the slash, to be divided by. And then we click on the cell that was the average. So it's the standard deviation cell, E6, E6, divided by the average cell, which was E5. Now, what you'll notice as soon as we click on that is that that's a decimal form. So you could have multiplied it by 100, but Excel has a better way to convert it to the percent form, and that's just by coming up here to the menus and saying, hey, we wanted that to be in percent form. So there you go. It's all calculated for us, the average standard deviation and percent relative standard deviation. So that's it. One very last thing is if you were going to report the average and standard deviation for this, we need to then round for significant figures. So if we were going to report the average and the standard deviation, the way that we actually write that down on your paper, and I'll just type it in the cell, but the way you would write that down on your paper is you would go ahead and round to 1.2 instead of 1.233 because they were all two significant digit numbers. And then we would use the plus or minus key, which in Excel you can just type plus/minus. In Microsoft Word it has a special symbol for that if you prefer to use it. And then we actually round the standard deviation only to the same decimal place as we rounded the average. So you would do 1.2, oops, get back in the cell. We can come up here. You can always come up to this function line to edit if you need a little bit more space. So we would type in 1.2 plus or minus and then 0.2, rounding off the standard deviation to the same decimal place as we did the average. So then that's how you report the average and standard deviation if you wanted to type in your final answer. That's it. Thank you very much.